In this video, I'm going to demonstrate the techniques I used in my Audrey's pullover design to create jogless one-row stripes when working in the round. Because we're working in the round in this design, we're basically working in a spiral formation. And so if you were to work a stripe just like you would any other round, what happens is that a jog appears at the beginning of the round. And let me show you what I mean by that. So in this little demo, the first stripe, I simply worked by joining the new color and not working any special technique whatsoever and just working in the round. So as you can see, the first stitch looks lower than the last stitch. And so that's what's referred to as a jog. It's sort of like a jaggedness from the new color at the beginning and end of the round. So is this a huge deal? Not really, but it bugs some people, myself included. I prefer, if possible, to have a more seamless and neat looking join. And so there are a lot of different techniques out there that try to solve this particular problem. And there's one in particular that I used for this design that I found worked the best. So as you can see in the second round, here's our beginning of round, compared to the first stripe, it really looks totally seamless. You can't see any jaggedness at all with the stitches. So before we get started, as I said, I've tried a lot of different techniques. This particular one, I want to make sure to give credit to where I first discovered it. And it was from videos that I saw from knitting designer and author Patty Lyons. And so I've also linked below to the video lessons that she has about this. So I highly recommend checking those out as well. Okay, so let's get started with how to work this jogless one-row stripe using these particular techniques as it relates to the Audrey's pullover design. So in the Audrey's pullover pattern, under the stripes section, it will say round 1, join contrasting color and knit to the end. But with this particular technique, we'll actually work one step before joining the contrasting color. So before joining the contrasting color, what we're going to do is we're going to slip the first 3 stitches purlwise. So let me show you. Okay, so I just had one more stitch to knit at my previous round. So I'll slip my marker. Okay, so before joining our contrasting color on this round, I'm going to slip these first 3 stitches purlwise. So I'm going to insert my right needle into the front of the next stitch, so as if I was going to purl it, but then I just slip it over without working it. And I'm going to do that to the other 2 stitches. So I've slipped 3 stitches. So now I'm going to join the contrasting color and knit all the way to the beginning of round marker. So let me show you how I join the contrasting color. So I just start knitting with it. So I'm going to first insert my right needle into the next stitch on the left needle. And then here's my contrasting color. I like to leave a nice long tail in case we need to, cinch anything up later. But I'll take my contrasting color and I'm just going to drape it over the top of the right needle, just like that. And then I'm just going to knit with it. So I'm just going to go like this and knit that first stitch. And of course, this first stitch is going to be a bit loose. That's to be expected, but I'll show you how that all works afterwards. So now I'm just going to start knitting with this contrasting color until I come back around to my beginning of round marker. Okay, so I'm at my beginning of round marker, and when I knit that last stitch, the main color is pretty loose because that was where we had slipped the stitches. So all you need to do for that is take your main color and just sort of cinch it up just a little bit like that. Okay, so then I'm going to slip my marker. And because we had slipped those first 3 stitches, we still need to knit them with the contrasting color. So I'm going to go ahead and knit them. Okay, so now we're done with our contrasting color. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it, and I'm going to leave a long tail. So I would say at least 8 to 10 inches or so. I tend to leave really long tails just in case. Okay, so I've cut my tail. Okay, so at this point, we have two tails now for our contrasting color. So the one over here was when we had joined the contrasting color and started it. And then here is our ending tail right here. And that's important. You'll see in just a second. So what we want to do now is I want to slip this stitch over here onto the right needle, but this time I want to slip this stitch knitwise. So what I'm going to do, and when you do this, you could be holding on to the tail here on the left hand side. I'm just going to insert my right needle into the stitch as if I was going to knit it. So in this way, and then slip it over to the right needle. Now what I want to do is, let's look at the back of our work real quick. So I want to take this tail. So this was the tail at the end of the round, right? I want that to go under the tail that had been at the beginning of the round. So all I'm going to do is bring it under just like that. And then what I find helpful, because I'm an English knitter, so I hold the working yarn with my right hand. So what I find to be helpful is then to take this tail here and bring it under just like this. So I'm holding it with my left hand there. And that way, this tail I'm holding with my right hand. So as you can see, they're twisted around each other. So the goal here is that the tail that was coming out of this stitch here went under this tail, and then I'm holding it again now with my right hand. Okay, so now let's bring the right side of our work facing us again. And now what I want to do is I want to take my left needle tip and I want to insert it into one stitch below this stitch we just slipped onto our right needle. And so what I'm going to do, and we're going to go from back to front, I'm going to take this left needle and I'm going to go into this stitch down here, just like this. So I'm going to insert it and go just like that. Then I want to take my right needle tip and I want to go into the back of this stitch, like that. Then I'm going to take the tail that I'm holding in my right hand here. And again, this was from the tail coming from our last stitch that we had knit here. And I'm going to bring it over the top of the right needle like that. And then I'm going to knit this stitch like this. And so what that did was it created a double stitch. And so that's what it should look like on your needles right now. Now what we want to do is we want to slip this double stitch as well as these three stitches onto the left needle. So to do that, I'm just going to take my left needle tip now and I'm going to insert it into this double stitch here just like that and slip it over and then do the same thing with these three stitches, just like that. And so now we're back at our beginning of round marker. Now we're going to be knitting with our main color. So pick up your main color again, just like this, and let's knit the first three stitches. And now we're at this double stitch that we had created. We're going to knit these two loops together, but we're going to do so through the back loop. So I'm going to take my right needle tip and I'm going to insert it into the back of both of these loops. So through this way, and this is what it looks like on this side. And I'm going to knit them. As you can see, these loops look a little loose. So now what we're going to do is we're going to cinch up those tails. So let me just take the back of the work here and let's cinch that up just like that. And now we're just going to continue knitting this round with our main color until we come back around to our beginning of round again. And after I do a couple stitches, I just want to show you, it's looking pretty seamless right over here, isn't it? There's one more step though that we have to do though. So I'm going to take my main color and go right back to my beginning of round again. So I will knit across this round. Okay, so we're just about at our beginning of round. I'm going to slip my marker. And then what you want to do is your very final step in this process is that we want to take our right needle and we're going to insert it into one stitch below the next stitch on the left needle from back to front. So I'm going to take my right needle and I'm going to go into this stitch right here from back to front, just like that. And I'm going to place it on the left-hand needle like this. Okay, so we have sort of a double loop again. And then I'm going to knit those together. Just like that. And then you can just continue knitting. So our jogless one row stripe technique is now complete with all of those steps. And as you can see here, it really creates a nice seamless join where you do not see the jaggedness at all. And it looks really nice, neat, and seamless. So one last thing I wanted to show. So I've done now a couple of rounds after my contrasting color. And as you can see, it's definitely looking pretty nice and seamless. But what I want to show you is how I would weave in my contrasting color tails on this side. And especially, I'm going to show it in such a way here where if your stitch that's right here, so see how it's maybe just slightly elongated compared to the other ones. How I show you how I weave in ends helps if that's the case for yours. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my tail that's on the right side here, and I'm going to thread it through my tapestry needle. And I like to work the duplicate stitch when I'm weaving in ends. So what that means is that you're basically like tracing over existing stitches when you're weaving in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my needle. I'm going to hold this just like this a little bit. There we go. I'm going to insert it into this loop right here. And then I'm going to insert it into this loop right here. And then I'm going to pull the needle through. And because I'm tracing over this stitch here, what I then want to do is I want to go into this loop and then back down into this loop. Just like that. And then as you can see, when you turn it over, I find that that helps to secure that stitch a little bit more. And what you could always do too is if it seemed like it still was a little bit elongated, is that you can take your loop and you can kind of cinch it up on the wrong side a little bit. And then that also helps as well. And typically, I might do that for just a couple of stitches. So let me show you one more time how I would do a duplicate stitch now going around here. So I would insert my needle into this loop, then into this loop. And then because I want to trace over here, so see how you could see the contrasting color loop here. So I'm going to go into this loop and then back down again into that loop, just like that. And then that should be enough. And I don't like cinching it too much because that could affect the fabric a little bit. And then I would just do the same thing with that tail, but going in that direction. Then as you can see, it really created a nice seamless join over here. So I hope this has been helpful, seeing how I used the steps in these techniques in order to work one round stripes in Audrey's pullover, but perhaps you might find it helpful for any time you might be wanting to work one round stripes when working in a round. Happy knitting!